mean, like, I don't do it anymore, but like for this, you know, that kind of the period when I was photocopying and doing my zine stuff and all that, like, my partner at the time, she was driven to distraction by the fact she could hear me visibly counting panels.
Wow.
Like the fact, you know, when I was reading, because I broke apart every comic I read basically in terms of, and I still do it now. When I read a comic and it feels long or short,
wow.
Like if I'm like, this feels like, was this only 22 pages? And then I count the pages, then I go back, okay, why does that feel long? Then I count the panels and like, you know, try to get that kind of, you know, like I still just go to the first tactics of like, okay, how the hell did that make? Why did that work like that? What can we, you know, what is usable there?
That's amazing. So okay, so you have this moment with Phonogram where you break through, and then what?
It's weird. I said like, I occasionally think about when talking to people in the movie industry. I describe Phonogram as basically like our pie. You know what I mean? Like this cool black and white movie which got our name out. And the problem with like Phonogram, which I have nothing but love for, it doesn't really, if you're aiming at a career, it doesn't really say you do anything than Phonogram. You know,
interesting.
You know I mean? Like,
it's so personal. It's hard to figure out.
It's like, well done, you can do about pop music. This does not necessarily mean you can write, you know, Spider-Man or whatever, which is true. You know, also, I mean, this is actually the bit where it's quite. Let me work out how to say this. So the book's out there, and there's a lot of people who are aware of the book. And there's definitely some type of conversations I have with people, like Shelley Bond at Vertigo. I end up like, talking to quite a bit, and so I'm starting to pitch at people.
Shelley's amazing, very, very important figure in the history of comics.
Yeah, another Anglophile. This is kind of like, you know, the Anglophiles are useful for me, of course.
Okay.
Like actually, as a way around it, I've got to talk about like Warren Ellis, who recommended me to Avatar. Who it took me a while for the work for Avatar to come out, but that was some of my earliest work for hire, like circa 2008.
And which Avatar series was that?
This was Uber. I started writing Uber, and it didn't come out till it took that long to come out.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is like, it was actually the second superhero comic I'd ever written, I think. And the first being New Universal 1959, which was a spin-off of the New Universal comic that Ellis was doing at the time. That like he'd picked various writers to do spin-offs. And I did this. It's basically a James Ellroy superhero story in the 1950s.
Wow.
Like, and it's only one issue, and I hit the, you know, I love James Ellroy. So I really try to hit that sort of vibe. And it's all like conspiracy. It's all like conspiracy stuff, and it's got some cool moments when really creepy superhero stuff happens. And that is the moment I think my things changed at Marvel, in that they saw this issue and it's like, oh, this guy can write a superhero comic. So Robin Simons from the 4 office and Nick Lowe from the X-Men office both dropped me a line. They both dropped me a line at the same time, and I think I thought they were the same person, because I presumed that, no, why would 2 Marvel editors be? In fact, I'm lying. I think they thought they were my original editor. I failed to realize that why would be 3 editors talking to me?
Wow.
Yeah. So they offered me, and this, of course, you know, I mentioned right at the beginning of this story about the first hit comic. Put it online. Other artists said, "Oh, we should do something sometime."
Yep.
That's basically, you can trace that all the way through my career. It's like playing a slot machine or something, like gamble or quit.
Yep.
Like getting the previous work leads to, oh, that was interesting, we should do something. Right. And that kind of, the 1959 led to these first like stories for, like, it was a Dazzler thing, an 8-page Dazzler thing for Nick, and a one-off Beta Ray Bill story, I think, for Warren. And I wrote them both, didn't fluff them. Then they offered me another one, like, do you want to do a mini, and then, or like a one-off Sabretooth thing, Sabretooth thing, and a one-off a free issue mini for Beta Ray Bill. And I did them. They didn't hate them. And then an Ares, and then it was heading towards Sword, I think. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was always like, okay, try this. Oh, that was good. Try this.
Right.
You know, and that's how the reputation built. And of course, also tied to this is years of being a journalist has made me really reliable. Like,
well, I was going to bring that up because I think that's incredibly important. You know, one of the things, my own experience, I worked at Malibu Comics in the early 90s in the marketing department. And a buddy of mine that I just met at the comic shop and got to know was Tommy Lee Edwards, incredibly talented artist, wonderful person.
I love his stuff.
And Tommy was trying to break in, and he had just been published in an independent anthology. And I'm probably 23, 24. And I say to Tommy, Tommy, Tommy's talent was clear as a belt to me. And I said, Tommy, I think you've got it. But one thing I just want to tell you, and I was trying to show his work to the Malibu editors at the time. I said, I know these editors, the single most important thing to them is that you turn the pages in. Well, at that time it was a page a day. If you can do a page a day, that's the most important thing. And I remember Tommy kind of cocked his head and looked at me and was like, is that, he said, asked some version of, is that second to quality? Because he was working so hard to every day improve. And I said, yeah, I think so. Like they would rather have the story than have the story 3 days late better. And I remember Tommy having that moment of like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. I would expect that they would let me hold on to it and work on it and make it even better so that when it gets published, it's better, and sort of the commercial reality of understanding how to turn your work in on a deadline, crucial.
I think it's one of these, especially for writers. I mean, Alan Moore said, but Alan Moore's definitely said the idea that your fundamental duty is to make sure the artist has pages to draw, because the artist can't pay their rent. I think it was Ivan Brandon who told me. Of course, I agree with him. Let's say I agree with him. If the artist doesn't have a script, you should pay their rent. Because like you are literally the problem. So like, and also my basic Catholic guilt means that's a good motivator for me, knowing that no one else can work until I do something. Like that's a pretty good one. Also, like when I worked in an office at PC Gamer, I think people who haven't worked in a publishing in-house at publishing often think, oh, it doesn't go to press yet, it doesn't matter if I get it late. Or like in the case of a magazine, you need, if someone has a monthly column, they say, oh, the magazine doesn't go to press until then, I can hand it in then. No, we want you to hand it in the first week, so the artist has so the art design people have something to do in that week. They've got enough shit to do later on because they've got them, that's just the nature of like flow and copy and impact. So yeah, I mean, like coming from that background makes me, I hope, I'm saying this, I imagine every single editor I've ever worked with going, Kieron is delusional. But I try to be like, I don't think I'm as quick as I used to be, but I'm still kind of, when I was working for Marvel, I was always expressly doing less than I could do. I don't think I've ever worked to my full rate at any point. Like, because that's when you break. And so it's one of the things, I never did it then, but now I never schedule to work at the weekend. And the reason why is because that if something goes wrong, and stuff goes wrong regularly, I can work at the weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yep. I've always got to give. And like, and to us, quite regularly, my editors at Marvel stopped giving me deadlines, because like I always kind of knew when. Then I knew, like, since I'm following the story, I know when a script is needed. So it's like
that's powerful.
It's like it's so funny because like I think people from magazines thought I was quite prima donna-y, and they were right. But like for a comic creator, I'm very low maintenance. Like I'm not like there's people who are on the phone every day and all that. I do the pages, they get in. I think I'm slightly worse than I used to be. But at the same time, I'm pretty chill-ish.
But I think that's your 20s. Is it's like when you're paying for university, with the work that you're doing, that has tremendous value, right? And you're accepting in that publishing culture, you have a framework that you're working in, and certainly having moments where you're on staff and you're part of editorial, it gives you an appreciation for people turning their material in.
Oh, definitely.